Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lowdown. We'll just give like a couple more seconds for people to trickle in before we get started. But while we're waiting, if you want to use the little dot 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 in the upper right hand of your screen to change your name so that it says whatever information you'd like to share, but maybe your name, your farm you're associated with, maybe what state you're in, because that's kind of helpful for people to know. I'd love if you want to pop something in the chat about how the weather is where you are today. It's quite foggy here in Eastern Washington, which is nice. It's nice to have moisture in the air, so I'm enjoying it. All right. If you've renamed yourself, thank you for taking the time to do that. We'll get going. Just want to talk briefly about community agreements for this conversation. Clay just dropped those in the chat, which is basically be chill, be thoughtful. Let's have an interesting conversation and make sure we give everybody room to speak. We're also going to be joined after this webinar for office hours with the incredible Tim Joseph. Tim is the founder of Maple Hill Creamery. He's an expert on everything from cow patties to calculating your cost of goods. You love him. You won't want to miss his last Lowdown appearance of 2023. Be sure to stick around for 11 to 12 after this call to suckle from the teat of Tim's wisdom. We're here today with our guest, Katie Pencke. Katie has served many technical support roles for small local farms. She's been a program manager with Seattle Tilth and worked with conservation districts in King and Whatcom counties, which are in Western Washington. She launched her small diversified farm in Everson, Washington in 2015, Alluvial Farms, which is a 45-acre first-generation family farm specializing in pastured pork and organic hemp. Katie's talking with us today about consumer packaged goods, waste stream diversion, and her new line of pet products. Katie, super appreciate you being here today. And of course, we're joined by my esteemed co-host, Alex Miller of Lick Skillet Farms, looking pedantic indeed, from University of Tennessee, where he's a chaired professor of business, and he's also a seventh generation farmer at Lick Skillet Farms. So here we are. I'm Beth Robnett, cowpoke and weirdo from outside of Spokane. Super stoked to be part of the team and for this conversation today. Also, big shout out to Beth G, the OG, and Clay, who are playing tech support in the background. Thank you. Feel free to chat, drop any questions in the chat as we go along, and then we'll kind of collect those and sprinkle them in as it feels appropriate. Alex, you want to kick us off with the first question? You're muted, my friend.
It's only going to take 2 centuries to learn how to do that. Katie, I'm really excited about getting to spend some time with you and learn. As I was doing some research on, you've got a fascinating organization. In particular, the mix of products. I suspect that might be unique. I don't know of another farm that's got your particular blend of enterprises. So tell us a little bit about your farm and background and what it is you do now.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited with all the other guests that you guys have had on this conversation this year. They all have been super relevant to me, and I would love to hear more from all of them. So I look forward to seeing what happens next with this series. Okay, so Alluvial Farms in a nutshell, we've been in business 8 years. we've been 5 years on 45 acres of raw land. So a lot of our energy and effort has been into actually getting our family into an insulated structure. We spent 3 years living in an off-grid yurt while we were pursuing this passion project. My husband and I actually met working for Seattle Tilth. We were staff at a farm incubator. So it was our job to know all the little ins and outs of how to start a small farm business in the modern age. And we convinced ourselves it was possible, is sort of my joke, and launched ourselves into Whatcom County. So we were helping a woman who was starting a pig business when we were at the incubator. So we kind of fell in love with pork farming at that time, and that became our primary enterprise. So we've evolved into a farrow to finish business, and we harvest about 150 pigs a year. And our model, not to say it was almost second career for us, because we were professional service providers in the ag field. So we knew we were going to be aging in the business. So our model was small and focused on us at the same time. It wasn't dependent. The idea was not dependent on a lot of other staff. So when we found the 45 acres and I feel that 140 a year is carrying capacity for us. So we majority sell that through Whole's Housing Quarters. We go to one farmer's market in Bellingham, and we do some local wholesale. But in order to increase the revenue, we started experimenting with value added. So 2 years ago, introduced a skincare. We planted an acre of grapes, which is more of a passion project than anything, but that's a small revenue source. And did Airbnb for a while with the yurts, sold those now. And we've experimented with food service over the past 2 years, on-farm food service as a way to add value to the pork. And then this year introduced a pet treat. We also worked with a collaborative youth development program that's agriculture based, that's getting started in our community. That is a passion project of mine. Feel really excited about, and that will tie back into the consumer packaged good conversation. By the numbers, our annual gross revenue in 2023, we're at 225,000, and it looks like we'll be down this year. Last year was 290. We had sort of a peak of pork production and actually intentionally scaled that back a little bit. So I think we'll finish this year, and that's like gross revenue through farm business activities. We've remained in the black through an aggressive grant writing campaign and with financing from the FSA. I think we're at about 535,000 financed through the Farm Service Agency. I love the numbers. And I think when I talk about first generation family farm, and I never get to have this conversation with my clients. I just raise the price and don't tell anybody, and they don't need to know the ins and outs. But as a person who I'm in charge of the revenue, I'm fascinated by it. And it's what I always wish other farmers would tell me. So I'm just going to put it out there.
I really appreciate the transparency, because I do think that's how we learn from each other, and that's what that's what the Lowdown is about. So thank you.
Totally, 100%. My last point, just to give you the picture, is our current staffing I was going to share. So my husband and I now work full-time for the business. That became the truth in February 2021. I left the conservation district and came here full-time. So we're both here full-time. And we have 3 part-time staff, which altogether make up 1 other FTE. So we're basically a 3 FTE situation.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that snapshot of the business. Wow, I feel like we could have like a whole webinar series about everything that you have going on there, because there's so much to dig into. But we're talking about the consumer packaged goods today. So tell me a little bit about how you decided to pursue a consumer packaged good. Like, what was your thought process there? And I know you've kind of pivoted what that looks like over time. So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, thank you. I think primarily it was to increase revenue. We were selling pork and we were seeing that it had a really good market. We were able to figure out our messaging and communicate with the sort of Bellingham community. It's a town of 80,000 people with Western Washington University in there, and they have a great farmers market. And that seemed to be going really well. We were getting a lot of positive feedback, but we needed more because we were developing this raw land. And also we knew we wanted to both be full-time on the farm. And so we were looking at a wall of fat in the walk-in, and we actually would just make salve with it for our family. And so we were like, okay, let's go skincare. And I think, we knew what we were getting into starting a farm business, but starting a consumer packaged good enterprise, I actually don't think I really knew what I was getting into. Although very early on, we were getting some coaching with the amazing Alluvial through EcoTrust. They kind of paid for us to get that. And we were telling her about our skincare idea. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get it in the grocery store. It's going to take off. And she was like, she kind of looked at me. She was like, retail? She was like, that's a whole thing. She was like, you need to learn. And so she was the one who told me about a coaching out of the Bay Area called Retail Ready. And I was lucky enough to be able to use some funding to sign up for that. And that's where I was exposed to this whole world of how does something get onto the shelf at the grocery store. And, there's a lot of factories involved, and I wasn't planning on co-packing. Our vision was to make it all in-house. So it's been a fascinating journey, but upcycling the unused products was primary thing. And so that's why pet treats from organ meat, skincare from fat. I would like to do bone broth next. And then at this point, 2023 to 2025, I would like to increase our revenue by $100,000. And so I actually feel like I learned a lot with skincare, and I think pet treats, I'm putting a lot of eggs in the pet treat basket right now, and hoping I'll talk more numbers of what my goals are there. But basically, to get it, we just launched it in the fall, and I think this year we'll be at like $4,000 or $5,000 gross on pet treats. And honestly, I'm setting a really audacious goal. I would like to see that at 75,000 gross within a few years. And I guess why, within the category of consumer packaged goods, why did we pick skincare and pet treats? And both of those are scalable because those are waste products for other farmers as well. So if I could make the sales take off, I could buy those things from other farmers. If I could figure out my production, which is a bottleneck right now. And they're both shelf stable. They have 1 year shelf life, both of them. And you don't need a commercial kitchen to produce either of them. So we have a kitchen space now. We have insulated building. It's amazing. Thankful for it every day. But it's not like a certified kitchen to where I'm actually applying to my state for funding to build a certified kitchen here. Probably everybody in Washington State is applying to the state to do some infrastructure. Our state's about to invest $5 million in local food infrastructure. But yeah, those are kind of how we decided on a consumer packaged good and then kind of which ones to do within that.
You're muted again, Alex.
I really appreciate your candor and transparency and running some numbers. Let's go a little bit deeper into the analysis that you did and getting into two very different products. And it was the sort of health and beauty and then dog treats.
Yeah.
Both of those are going to require quite a bit of business planning and quite a bit of I don't know, new processes, new standards that have to be met, new certification, all this. Can you talk about how you waded through? I know you had a background that already probably helped you with that, but it sounds like you're being successful in getting grants to fund this, but you're also able to navigate all the bureaucratic challenges required to get into these new lines of businesses that weren't required just to sell halves of hogs. Can you talk about?
I mean, honestly, the first thing we had to figure out was how to sell meat by the cut. And that's highly regulated by the federal government. Everybody, my clients, the most common question I get is, do you do your own butchering? And I'm just looking at them like, oh my God, you have no idea. I made an infographic to try to show them, but nobody wants to interpret it because it's too dense. So I feel like once we figured out how to do meat, like something the human is going to put inside their body, that's the most stringent. And from there, skincare and dog treats, like that is actually one of the reasons why we chose those two to move forward with this. The dog treat, for example, is a license that we get from our state Department of Agriculture. And it's a pretty straightforward application. And we already are working with USDA inspected product. And so the WSDA has been really easy to work with, I got to be honest. And the skincare, you don't need.
Are you intentionally staying out of dog food and just focusing on dog treats?
Well, for us, it's the shelf stability.
Okay.
And what can we make here? So we're using a commercial dehydrator. We're blending the organ meat, just pure pork liver, 60% with garbanzo bean flour, 40%. Put it in a silicone mold. It's a lot of spackling of pate. That's how I'm thinking of selling this job. Pate spackling into the silicone mold, and then you commercial dehydrator it for like 10 hours and it comes out like a little liver cracker.
So tell me about like the research and development process there. Like how did you
Yes.
How do you come up with a product? How do you test it? Like how do you know it's ready to go to market?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, 2020, we launched the skincare, and that one you actually cannot. We tried for 2 years in a row to get a value-added producer grant to launch the skincare, and our original vision was actually growing hemp and putting that in the ointment, as I'm now calling it. It's so good. So we had CBD ointment, and turns out even though it was federally legal in the 2018 Farm Bill, there's still massive confusion about it. And so it disqualified us from getting value-added producer grant. And that's why I'm going back next year with just pure ointment, no CBD, just ointment. And then I think we'll be able to get some more funding to keep that moving along. But so we were bootstrapping the skincare. And so that was, just trial and error in-house. We have a farm mate who used to be a cancer researcher. He's really good with numbers. And he's actually taken over the pet treat production, starting it.
He's the chief spackler.
He's the chief spackler. The other day I was like, Rob, get another spackle thing. Let me help you. You can't be just the only spackler around here. So now nobody should spackle liver alone. That's my new motto.
Camaraderie. It's good.
Oh goodness. So it's all just been in-house and bootstrapped.
Okay. Yep. So you're not like, are you working with a co-packer, or are you looking to work with a co-packer?
Not right now. No. And this has been a really fantastic part of being part of the Retail Ready community, let's call it. It's an online training program for anybody doing a consumer packaged good that's food. So primarily they're food businesses where they're buying all their ingredients from a manufacturer. And I think that a farm consumer packaged good case is really fascinating because we are the manufacturer and we're making the thing. Like when I was trying to figure out how to learn what shelf stability, how do you get that number? I was asking other people in that program and they're like, oh, you just get it from the manufacturer. And I was like, bro, I am the manufacturer. Like, how am I supposed to get it? So anyway, in-house, no co-packer. And from what I've heard from the other people in the Retail Ready community and what I see of our model, I don't think we're looking for a co-packer. I think we want to keep it in-house. And another thing that's evolving alongside this is the potential for us to be part of a collaborative youth employment program that's farm-based. So there are 3 rural high schools in our county, and our town is the first majority Latino town in Whatcom County. And a lot of these young people's like families working professionally as farm workers. So they have a really profound appreciation for farming and agriculture, but also see it as like a dead end. And so what I'm trying to be through these enterprises is an example of what might be possible on a family farm. I think at the same time, I say that so negatively, there are a lot of small family farms in our county too, at the same time. And there's a lot of kids who have a lot of pride in what their parents do for a living, whether they're a farm owner or a farm worker. And there's really active Future Farmers of America chapters at all those high schools. And now there's a nonprofit, Cloud Mountain Farm Center, that's stepping in and saying, well, maybe we'll be like the host agency. We'll write the grants and we'll employ the young people. We'll give them some coaching, and then they can go to these other partner farms. And this year we started with field trips. I had 150 high schoolers come out the other day and do like a soil thing. It was really cool. So when I think about all the manual labor involved in making all these things, I kind of think about, well, if we can be an example of what's possible and create a few jobs for first year out of high school young people who just need a minute, could be a win-win.
Yeah. Can I get down in the weeds for a little bit and ask you some more detailed questions? So on your, you say you're using a commercial freeze dryer.
Yeah.
Are you buy one, or are you renting one for time, or at least
dehydrator
for time only?
Dehydrator.
Yeah, dehydrate. I don't know what I said, but
freeze dryer, and that's another way that pet treats are made, and those units are super expensive. So
you just have the dehydrator. I'm looking at your product. It looked to me like it was freeze dried online.
Nope, it's a dehydrator, and that unit is called a Harvest Saver, and it's about a $10,000 unit.
Okay,
we were really lucky. Some friends of ours, it's a wonderful farming community. They had got a grant to buy one for an enterprise that they closed. And so they still had the unit, and they were like, well, if you guys are really going to do something, why don't you just borrow it? Basically, they lent it to us. And so we actually wired the building to be able to plug that thing in, because we had it in mind and we wanted to try to do this. It just takes like, I forget, the 220 or like for a dryer. And then there you go.
Okay. And you're talking about applying to become a commercial kitchen. Would that just be for the bone broth operation, or you have other things in mind for the kitchen as well?
That would be for bone broth, to be able to launch that. And that would be for lard to be able. Okay. So basically the bone broth and lard, we'd be making those under what I believe is a USDA retail exemption. And so they never would be for wholesale, but we could direct sell them till the cows came home. If I could find a big enough market, direct selling fat and bone broth. And those two, if I can make that here right now, to schlep to Bellingham, it's not that far, but it's like a 12-hour day, to render lard in Bellingham in a rented commissary. So I would like to be able to do that here, because we launched lard in like 2019. We worked with a HACCP consultant to make sure that we were going through that we understood USDA retail exempt, and that our process was food safe. And so to be a commercial kitchen, that's important. You have to have that for lard and bone broth. And then there's this whole food service thing that's hanging out there. Like, that is not our passion. I'm an ecologist by training, and my husband is basically a farmer by training. He has a master's from MSU in agriculture. And food service, that's a whole nother ballgame, but it is a value add. And one of our amazing staff is a chef by training. And so it's been a painful experiment. It's really tough. Fancy food. We did 4-course plated meals this past year, and with the previous year we did buffet for 75 people. So we've tried both of those. We did pork sandwiches one weekend, but all of that has involved renting a commissary in Bellingham and that type of thing. And it doesn't make sense to get the food here, drive it to the city, make it, bring it back home. But it's a massive investment. There's no way that any of those enterprises would warrant. It's probably a $200,000 to $300,000 project, because again, we were working with raw land. And so the potable water, septic, and power upgrades necessary to make this certified. And our county's super wet. So they're really, really on top of. They don't just let anybody call a commercial kitchen. I've talked to a couple other farmers who've done this in drier counties, and yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're like in one of the most heavily regulated counties in the state, maybe the country. I don't know. It's really hard to get stuff done in Whatcom County.
Which, you got to keep the poop out of the water. That was my job for 5 years at the conservation district, so I'm all about it.
So it sounds like you have really been able to take advantage of your professional career to like network and like become aware of all of these resources. And obviously you have some grant writing chops. What advice would you give to like the lay person out there who maybe wants to take advantage of a lot of those same resources but doesn't quite have the same like visibility of the network of all those things?
Well, actually, that's one of my favorite pieces of advice to give to young people who's interested in starting a farming business is go get a full-time job in the industry while you do that. That's what both Matt and I did for many, many years while we started our business. And it's a good way to do it. And then I guess the other thing is, say you're maybe yourself already a second career and moving into farming, or, don't have time to go do that type of thing. Coaching. There's so much out there. In my county, for example, with the value-added producer grant, or in the 4-county region around me, there's the Northwest Agriculture Business Center, and those guys will put you in a workshop, show you all their templates, get you going with value-added producer grant, up to even maybe help with grant writing. So that's just one example, out of many. And then in your value-added producer grant, you can put a line item for coaching, and you can even purchase some coaching. I've been working with an amazing program out of Oregon that I would actually love to see on the Lowdown, called 5X Your Farm Sales. Little shout out there to that coaching program and what Charlotte Smith is doing for farmers. I really have appreciated it. She's got some great sound bites. Farming is a river of misery, and if you aren't prepared for that and your brain is not ready for that, it can be really challenging. So it's nice to have help. And the WSDA, I don't know if they're still doing it, my state Department of Ag, they had a free coaching program for a while. That's how I met Michelle Thorne. Those were all kind of one-offs. It wasn't ongoing. I was able to work with the agency in Portland that had a free accelerator for farmers and got some coaching through that. Even, my state, Washington State University, has Cultivating Success, which is a free, I don't know if it's 100% free, but it's a quick, like, dip your toe in if you're just first conceptualizing your business plan. And then there are still incubator programs out there. I feel like it kind of had a peak and then a wane, but if there's a farm incubator program in your community, those are other resources.
Cool.
Oh, actually, sorry, one more free coaching resource. I looked up the Service Corps of Retired Executives. SCORE. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because a friend of mine runs an electrician business, and she had a SCORE mentor, and she was like, this is awesome, and you should look this up, because we're always talking business together. So I contact SCORE, and what do you know, but they matched me with Gene Kahn. I don't know if any of you guys know who Gene Kahn is, but he started Cascadian Foods.
Yeah.
And he's the dude who he was a back to the lander in the 70s and built his business to sell it to General Mills, and then became like a VP, and he started selling jam at Pike Place Market. So this has been fascinating, talking to Gene Kahn about my ointment. He's just like interesting. He's like, I buy Dr. Bronner's. Somebody might buy this. You got to make it feel good when they put it on their skin. And basically he was like all about the market research. And so that's why my most recent grant, I wrote to Western SARE to train the FFA kiddos how to do customer interviews and go to fairs and whatnot and do official market research. And actually, this is where I wrote you guys into the grant too, because if we're able to do that, there's a free tool to teach a farmer how to do that from Oregon State University. called the Market Research for Market Readiness Manual and Toolbook. And so I found that online, so I don't have to invent any of the research tools. And so my idea was to try to work with high schoolers to do more research to find out what customers are reacting well to and not well to, and help us fine tune our packaging and our branding and the attributes that we're talking about.
Great. That's fascinating, Katie. But so I suspect most of the people listening to this have a background in livestock production and have some sense of how they would track progress and performance and success in livestock production. But you've gone well beyond it. Can you educate us on how you measure performance and track success in these new enterprises that you've tacked on to livestock production?
Yeah. Well, basically we're doing it through our books. And tracking revenue separately. And, you know, I think this year skincare, we just hit 10, maybe we're going to be at 10,000 revenue on the old skincare there, the ointment. And so that's like me parsing farmers market revenue to allocate to skincare and now pet treats and pork and that type of thing. We have a couple small wholesale accounts for the skincare and hoping to grow the skincare maybe to 30,000 a year from where it's at now, and then leave it at that, and then hoping to scale the pet treats more, which I think in order to get to the numbers that we've set as goals, I think I don't know, maybe we'll have to look at a co-packer. I don't know. It's really, this is another thing. I feel like all this is so experiential learning. So that would be my other advice to another family farm that was like, oh, I want to do a consumer packaged good, is just bootstrap something and try it to get it on the table at the farmer's market. And just as many books as, you know, we'll all learn by doing. I think it's a human nature thing. So just get something going, and then it will help you help inform.
Yeah. I want to ask a little more about metrics. Obviously, like it's helpful to contextualize what the top line revenue goals are, but like, how are you looking at your margins and like, how do you kind of prioritize what, like, you have a lot of enterprises going with a lot of product lines. Like, I imagine you have to really like focus your attention on the ones that have the best return, but then you also have to balance that with just like what you have to get rid of, I guess.
100%.
So tell me more about how you like look at that.
Well, so you asked about metrics, but then also you asked about like the enterprise spread. And in my mind, there's a really intense hierarchy of pork first. That's the vast majority of our income. And that's my online marketing is all about pork right now. That's something I've been refocusing on after losing track of that for a while. And then pet treats is next. And I understand that I actually think it's not best practice in business to have too many enterprises because it becomes hard to do anything well. So I'm trying to like battle that inclination within myself to spread myself too thin. And at the same time, it's a value of our business to be zero waste and to value the pigs that we're growing in a way that nothing that comes from them will be wasted. So that's, I guess, what is on the other side of the scale. I know it's best practice to focus, but I also have a value of being zero waste. So I hierarchicalize them in my mind: pork, pet treats, and then skincare. And honestly, food service was very close to getting completely axed. We did axe farm stays, so I have cleaned it up a little bit. But now that the potential of certifying the facility commercial, it will be complete. Food service will be completely axed if this remains an uncertified kitchen, I think. It's just tough. People love eating a pork sandwich on the pig farm. That was so satisfying for everybody involved. So that didn't really make us any money, but
I'm muted. I don't know why I'm muted.
You're not muted. We can hear you.
I'm not muted now?
We can hear you.
Okay. I was going to say, I think what I just want to make a comment on your best practice statement. I think it's really good. It's good to know the best practices and the rules so that you know when you're intentionally breaking them. And that is sort of like a better tension than just not breaking them because somebody else said. Because to be honest, your structure that you've laid out is really amazing to me. And you are actually like, and maybe the way to think about it is sort of complementary products where, yeah, skincare is different, pet treats are different, but it is very complementary versus farm stays are a quantum leap, right? You're like doing a totally different type of work, totally different customer experience, all of that. And so I think, not to say that you don't add them back someday, but probably in the context, just sort of those rings of complementary products, that's really smart, especially because you're turning something that is a waste product into revenue and margin. Like I'd break that rule of focus every day to do that, which you've done.
Good one. And that's a good point about the add it back in, because the best practice is to work one thing until you get it profitable, and then you can add the next, right? So that's a great point. And then that reminded me your margin question, Beth, on metrics. And I guess 40 to 50% margin is what I'm looking for on everything. But, creates this funny tension with pet treats. I think it takes me just under $8 to make one little 5-ounce bag of pet treats. And the grocery store, those guys want to get 40% margin themselves. So they're almost doubling the price.
Now you're selling a $30 bag of pet treats. Yeah.
So I had my first grocery store interested in the pet treats, but then I was going to go through the Puget Sound Food Hub as my distributor. So they add 20%.
Yeah.
And then it was going to get doubled. And it was going to be $24. But that I might do it. I don't know. I really don't know. So then now I'm back to just direct to consumer. So I'm going craft shows. This is my first year. I'm going to set up booths at Urban Craft Uprising in Seattle. And there's 2 craft markets that I'm going to be part of in Bellingham, because maybe that's more our scale right now, honestly, than a grocery store.
Subscription model?
Yes, 100%. Going to launch the subscription next year. Excellent.
Cool.
Because my online funnel, this is why I'm trying to learn online marketing, is because basically I already launched a pork business. Now I need to launch a pet treats business. So I need to create a separate list to sell pet treats online. And that list has like 1 person on it right now. But my pet treats list, my pork list has 1,400 people on it. So that's what I'm working on, is how the logistics of building 2 separate funnels.
Hey, Katie, let me follow up on that. We got a great question from Holly at Porch Swing Farms asking, how do you market your pork product, your ointment in particular? She makes a similar product, and Holly, if I get any of this incorrect, you fill me in. But she's interested in particular is how you market that individual product. Could you speak to that at all?
Bellingham Farmers Market, that's primary. Yep. And at the farm, we're on a farm tour in our county, and people can buy online and pick it up here. So, we also have it all on the website, and we've had a tiny amount of e-commerce, but I'm just learning now about online marketing and modern marketing, internet marketing funnels. So I never had that for the skincare. And now skincare is taking a backseat to pet treats. So first I'll build an online funnel for pet treats. But yeah, the skincare is all direct to consumer, like through face-to-face. And that's what at craft shows the same.
And have you found it like granted, Bellingham is like land of the hippies, so I think if you could get anybody anywhere to smear free range pork fat on their face, it's probably there. But have you found it challenging to like get people excited about that product just because it's like a bit of a leap from what people are used to?
100%. 100%, which is why I was ready to kill the skincare, because I was tired of telling people to put lard on their face and just they are kind of grossed out by it. There's a visceral reaction that
they'd rather put petrochemicals on their face.
They're like, yeah, I'd rather put petroleum Vaseline. My own sister still does that, and I'm just horrified. But but I think that kind of brings me back to mindset though too, where I spent a while in this space of like, I don't care what people put on their face. I don't care what people give to their dogs. I know what's right type of thing. But then now it's more like, well, I get to tell people about this amazing way to care for their skin and their bodies. So it's centuries old, time tested, bioavailable. I've realized like, but in the thought process of almost killing the skincare, like that is a bit of a passion project for me too. That's the only moisturizer really that I've used for the past many years and feel really strongly about it. And also tying back to I have a strong belief in the value of the pigs I'm growing and
did we lose you, Katie?
Yeah, it looks like her signal is paused there.
Well, while we're hopefully Katie will sign back on. If you have any more questions you want to get asked, make sure that they're in the chat. And if she pops back on, I was going to ask her the question about marketing pork broth, which was also in the discussion. Clay, you had some experience in pivoting in the pork broth business. You want to share that real quickly?
Yeah, sure. So I worked at a small butcher shop in Western Washington as well. And the comment was, it's hard because pork broth is not as popular. We are not, as a country, tuned to eating pork right now, which is really interesting because if you look at the history of eating meat in this country, pork was a central piece of that, 200 years ago. But anyway, yeah, so we looked at it more the next step of value add, right? Bone broth is a value add, and then we put spices in it, called it ramen broth, and actually got a ramen shop in Seattle, Oink Ramen. They use pork bones from the business that I worked at. And so that was a quick pivot. And when we started selling it as ramen broth for $3 more than pork broth with 25 cents worth of spices added to it, same amount of time, it flew off the shelf, right? So it's sort of like looking at the ever evolving food scene was how we were able to get that product from a total loss to a huge win for us, right? So
and then also pairing that too with like ramen cuts that you find in ramen. So doing shabu shabu or like thinly sliced pork belly or something like that, putting it right next to your frozen pork broth. You can, we in the butcher shop that I worked in, like we couldn't keep it on the shelves.
That's brilliant.
Pitch is working on me. I'm like, take my money. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Also getting close to lunchtime, I guess. But
Katie, welcome back. I guess you had a quick glitch. We just pivoted to get Clay's input on marketing pork broth in particular. Do you have any comments about challenges of pork broth as opposed to chicken or beef?
I haven't tried it at all. And again, back to the focus thing, it's in my mind, but I'm not allowing myself
You're
to
just
really
not there
think
yet.
about it. But maybe we should, let's let them talk more. They're curious about their advice.
That's good. So I'm not tracking chat at this point. Is anybody, we got other questions we need to get to there?
I think we have other questions in the chat, but we are definitely ready to open it up for Q&A. So if anybody in the audience has a question, you can either pop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. I'll just leave a little space for that. Otherwise, we'll keep rolling here. All right. Michelle also shared a resource in the chat here, just to highlight for people, which is the Marketing Fundamentals for Producers course, which has a segment on building an online sales funnel. And there's a link they're self-paced and free. Thanks, Good Meat Project. Katie, I just want to ask if you have, I know you shared quite a few like pearls of wisdom. I'm curious if you have thoughts on what the pitfalls are, or if there's something that you would have done differently. I always feel like there's good learning to be had in our mistakes. So curious if you have any wisdom to share there.
I guess I go back to my recent embracing of the fact that we are all experiential learners. Because for a long time, I was really hard on myself that the skincare hadn't really gone anywhere. And felt like I was kind of pouring money into this. And I was like, oh, is this a waste? And, now embracing that I'm an experiential learner, same as the next guy, it's like, that was not for naught. Now I know a lot more because I just had something and I got it out there. And so I guess that's would be my advice is don't waste any time being hard on yourself for it's not working, because it's all learning. And
yeah, I think we lost your audio. We can't hear you, Katie.
Well, Katie gets that resolved. I'll echo what she was just saying. At least at Lick Skillet, if we have any kind of strategy, it is summarized and try a lot of stuff, keep what works, because there's so many different opportunities to be successful, but every one of those is also an opportunity to fail, and you just sort of have to belly up to that bar and accept it, and not just accept it, but sort of thrive in it. And we have a saying that we don't make mistakes, we just pay tuition. But every time we make a mistake and we treat it as tuition, we also follow up and saying, okay, what did you get out of your tuition? Because if we make that same mistake twice, that's not a good thing. We're not getting a return. So making plenty of mistakes one time is our goal. Making the same mistakes twice is something to be avoided. But clearly it is, as Katie said, it's learning by experience. So I think you're right on target there, Katie.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Tim here. I agree with you, Alex, and I most of you don't know, but I do have a PhD in stupid decisions and stupid ideas. But the most important thing to do is when you do that, to not be afraid to quit. Because that's one of the things I see is the downside of a lot of people have trouble stopping in the sunk cost fallacy and all that. And it's okay to make a mistake and take a loss, but it's not going to get better with age. Just when it's time for it to stop, and move on and pay the tuition, or sometimes the stupid tax, and try your next idea. But being able to quit and not be attached is also equally important, which I've done wrong many a time. So
I think a big part of that, Tim, is starting small enough that you don't feel like you've incurred as much sunk costs. It's for example, we were talking about turkeys before the show went live today, and we're just getting into the turkey business. We have a policy that says we don't want to invent any businesses, but we want to try lots of different businesses, but make sure we try them small. So our idea of trying turkey small is 25 turkeys, and it has worked well. We'll grow that business, but it's easy for me to walk away from turkeys having only invested in 25. If I'd started out with 1,000, I would have been in the turkey business, and that's a totally different decision. That's
great point. Great point. Agree with you.
Beth, do you have any other questions, or do we have any other questions from the group? If not, we can wrap this thing up and open up Tim's office hours.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all of your experience and so many pearls of wisdom, Katie. And I'm ready to sign up for your dog food subscription, so send me the link. Oh, you're muted.
I'd echo. I would echo. I just want to point out, being so focused on the numbers is pretty unusual. I've just, in everything I've done in agriculture across, doesn't matter what it is, dairy, beef, whatever, I often say 80% of the problem is 20% of the farmers, only 20% of the farmers know their numbers. And that's really, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. And knowing your numbers and having a goal about those numbers and just being focused on that versus most people tend to be focused on the product, and I can make this product, and then they work up to the numbers from that. And it's like you're looking at both sides, and oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much pain that would save a lot of people if they were focused on numbers first, you know, again, from starting out doing it the opposite way back when. I've done that, and it's way better the way you're doing it. I'll say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Katie could be an inspiration to a lot of folks that are first generation farmers, that a fairly small parcel of land, as some farms go anyway, and then immediately realizing, oh, I need to be doing a lot of value added production. I think both of those are pearls of wisdom that a lot of first generation farmers need to benefit from. So thanks for sharing that, Katie.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing all your wisdom on this series. It's really cool. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, this is our last lowdown for the year. We'll be taking the month of December off, and then we'll be back at it in January for our spring series, which we're just in the process of finalizing topics for. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Lots of great conversations to come. Clay or Beth, am I missing anything I should be saying in the closeout here?
No, I'll just jump in and add that
great job on the series. It's a great series. I just wanted to say to all of you, it's awesome.
And thanks for your office hours. Clay, what were you going to say?
A little bit about the marketing fundamentals course that Michelle went over earlier. And she talked about the online sales funnel, but it's a robust multi sort of video course. So there's tons to learn, sort of 101 level marketing things. Self-paced, it's free. Take advantage of it while it's online. The link's in chat, right in Michelle's message, and we'll make sure that everyone gets that in the email as well. So
great. Thanks, Clay. Thanks, Michelle, for that as well. All right, everybody. That's it for me. Thanks, Beth, and everybody else for all the help in doing this. Katie, best of luck as you move forward with all this.
Yeah. All right. Stay on the line for office hours with Tim Joseph. I've stayed for all the office hours, and I can tell you it's been a great conversation, whether one person sticks around or a dozen. There's always something really, really good that comes out of that extra conversation. So even if you got to go back to work, if you want to leave one earbud in and listen, I'm sure there's more wisdom to be gleaned. So, Tim, lay it on us.
All right. No, I just want to reiterate, like Katie, how impressive what she's done, and I don't know if she's staying on or not. That's fine either way. But anybody who's had any thoughts provoked or has specific things they're wrestling with related to what Katie was talking about, or frankly anything, I always say this isn't a quantity operation here in the office hours. It's a quality to go deep on something that's meaningful to just one person. So, happy to take any questions, and it's also fine if we don't have any questions because Katie did a great job.
Before we kick off, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I just don't want everyone to be deeply disturbed by that loud noise that's about to happen.
Okay.